I hit record. All right, we may have a few late joiners here, but we're going to have this recorded from this point forward. So, all right, everybody, thank you for coming in, and massive thanks to Rohan, who I've been following on Twitter for probably about 6 months now. And if you're not already following him, jump in. I'll obviously put the link and everything at the end of this conversation. But he shares a lot of great ideas about building these great predictable businesses that aren't, moonshot startup ideas that require an incredible amount of capital and risk and time. Not to say he doesn't spend time on it, but the amount of risk associated with the businesses that he's built and the things that I've learned from reading his stuff, I think are super beneficial to talk about and get more eyes on. There are obviously 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but this is, I think his ideas are great. And I wanted to experiment with a new format. We bring people in, we have a conversation, talk about a few of their high level ideas. And I'm going to try and actually sketch out a few things as we go, while I ask Rohan a couple questions about his approach and his story. And that's how we're going to run this. So Rohan, thanks, mate. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you being here, giving up your afternoon. Much appreciated.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me, bro.
100%, mate. So we're going to talk about Rohan's repeated experience of building 7-figure businesses. And we have a particular example that we're going to run through as kind of actually, let me come out of this screen share here. One example that we're going to run through, which is this home cleaning business. But Rohan, correct me if I'm wrong, you've built 3 7-figure businesses in these 3 spaces, right? Home cleaning, software as a service company, and a direct-to-consumer shaving company. Is that right?
Yes. Between those 3, we've done a little over 25 million.
That will do it, my friend. All right. Let's make a little edit to this slide. Cool. So we're going to talk about some of the concepts that I read of Rohan's on Twitter that kind of attracted me to the way he thinks and the way he builds. And we're going to expand upon a couple of those ideas. So you guys should definitely go and follow him and read his work after this call. But I wanted to highlight a couple of things in context and then build upon those. So this idea, Rohan, that you obviously entrepreneurial thinker, have like ambitions that exceed your resources, right? I think that's what we can agree on makes us entrepreneurs, but you also have this incredibly realistic and systematic approach to building businesses. And one of the things I admire about this approach is if you can crack the predictable, solid stream of income, you have a much higher, you have much more comfort with which to explore those like crazy moonshot ideas. Fair?
Yes, no, absolutely. I want to be really, really, really practical and tell myself, what can I do today with what I have? So my first business, it was $450. That's what I had.
Wow.
And instead of saying, let me start a business and then try to raise money for it, I say, let me look at my money and let me start a business that matches that money. And so that kind of skips me from wasting a bunch of time and get me to revenue a lot faster.
Yeah, that's great, man. So I think that's like this fundamental difference in approach. And we talked a little bit about this on the previous call, is kind of it is this opposite approach. And you just articulated well. It's like, I need X resources in order to build this, versus like, I have X resources, I'm going to build that, right? That to me is a fundamental shift in thinking that doesn't, for some reason, we talked about it before. It's like, I don't know whether it was too many people watched the Social Network movie or something, but it's kind of a plague on the entrepreneurial mindset where, eventually somebody's going to give me, somebody's going to give me $100 million and I'm going to be away. So I think it's interesting to just like think about flipping that equation. And this is a totally abstract drawing, but I can only get started when I have X amount of resources. So I let me go and have conversations with people that have no idea what I'm talking about. There's no validation for the product I've built. I just have this, I woke up with an idea and I wrote it down, and now I want to, have to raise money, or I have to meet X number of people in order to get this thing off the ground. Crazy way to approach things, but it doesn't stop it from being an incredibly common thing that we see happen every day, right?
True.
So can you talk a little bit about your perspective on validation? Because a lot of, and I will admit this myself, even a lot of my past has been like, let's build the thing, put it out there quickly. That's one way to think about validating something. Like, don't waste a ton of energy on over-engineering something, prototype something, get it out there. You have an interesting take on this, where validation is kind of approached from the opposite end. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I tell myself, like, I can either gamble on this thing being something that people want, so then I have to put it out there and test it and get feedback and do that whole thing, which is fine. Or I can say, what have people already validated for me? There's a million things that people spend money on, and my goal is to say, I just want to sell one of those things. I'm just going to sell one of those things. One quick trick that I use sometimes, I will check my bank account, look and see what I'm actually spending money on every month.
Great.
And use some of that to build a product that I can sell. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is, I don't know. I think it's a cognitive bias or something that we have, that I'm just going to drop this in as an example, where, you have information and you have confirmation of the things that you're spending money on that are incredibly common purchases, and just fill the world around you. I recently got into the suburbs a couple of days ago, and you sit outside and it's like, this truck pulls up and does one thing, this other truck pulls up and does another thing. You're like, who's running these businesses, man? They're probably making a decent living doing this stuff. So
yeah,
interesting way to think about this. I'm just trying to illustrate, like, people putting out the energy you put into creating the prototype, or the version of the business that doesn't exist yet, to then like be told, hey, the market doesn't care, goodbye, you wasted all your time. And the like energy that steals from you as an entrepreneur is brutal as well, right? The idea that you poured your time and energy into this idea that you thought was great, but there's no validation for it in the market. So something great about the way you think about that. And then to go a little further on that, I think, I'm not going to name any names, but we've seen a lot of this in our community. There's a lot of dwelling on these first pieces of the puzzle, or kind of just extrapolating these concepts that maybe you've read in a book, or someone's MBA summary taught you about it. It's like all of these crazy plans that really don't really mean anything until you make contact with the market. So I think, to go back a little bit further, the way you think about this, how did you kind of land here? Because you clearly think entrepreneurially, and you have like this ability to build these huge businesses, but how did you get to this point thinking like this? Like, knowing that it was possible to skip this stage, because I think a lot of people are plagued by this, and your perspective would be helpful.
Yeah, so I only figured out that it was possible to skip it by multiple times not skipping it. So I've been through it so many times, bro. This used to take me like 6 months, and I would have like a beautiful document. I don't know what the value of it was, but that's what I used to do to myself. And then my first time skipping it was when I was laid off from work, and I was like, okay, I need to make money now. I can't build something and somehow come up with an idea to monetize it later. That's what I used to do. Now I say, I want to build something, and I want to monetize it in 30 days. From today, by 30 days, somebody should come and put their credit card and pay me. And those
Wow.
are the businesses that I build now. Yeah. There's
Wow.
other stuff. And plus, if we don't do the validation fantasy idea thing, I know that I'm building something that people need anyhow. And then my process is only 3 steps. 1, I build the landing page that connects to them. 2, I set up a very simple way for them to pay me. I get out of their way and let them pay me. And 3, I get as many people to see it as possible. And I skip all the other craziness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let me, there's too much good content here that I can illustrate in real time, but let me just bang this out. So I love the idea of this being a constraint that you add, right? You have 30 days from 0 to your first dollar, right? That's a great way to think about validating a project from the perspective of whether or not, you know, you can build this predictable income stream. I think that's another interesting way to think about it. So the follow-up question I would have to these validated ideas is, I think this idea of saturation is something that a lot of people really struggle with. So can you, I think we have a couple of ideas on these next couple slides where how you think about saturation and how your the tactics that you deploy against the businesses that you've built actually take advantage of the fact that the market is saturated, as opposed to, you know, not building in that market because there's loads of people building in it. I think it's a great model that you have for this. So if you could talk about that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So this used to stop me too. So a lot of stuff that I write now is really just a reflection of me reflecting back on all the cognitive errors I used to make that would stop me from becoming successful. And one of those, probably the number one was the market is saturated. Then I realized the reason the market seems saturated is because there's money there. It's like the only reason that like all the sharks are going crazy is because there's money. And so it turns out that that's where I made most of my, well, all my money was. I wanted to say, I want to make sure there's multiple people in that place making a bunch of money. I want to look to see people being millionaires doing that thing. And I know that I just have to be as good as the weakest person, and I will make money too. Just be as good as the worst person in that list, and I can make some money. So
Yeah.
so I don't do anything unless the market appears to be saturated. It's really not, but I want it to look that way for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what the antonym of saturation is, but we're going to call it, unsaturated. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that,
yeah.
I was just going to say, I think I've kind of been fallen victim to this as well. And if I actually went back and looked at where I've made the most money in my career, it's always things that had been validated by somebody else, or, you know, an industry that already existed before I came along. And there are obviously outliers that exist. Those are the ones we hear about, right? The 5 or 6 businesses that you can recall off the top of your head that created a category. But the amount of people that fail in pursuit of creating a category is so astronomical that I love what you talk about, because I think even if you did want to go that category creation route, this offers you a way to learn the skills required to operate any business. And I think really sort of builds a much more realistic understanding of the economics of a business, especially operating in a saturated market. You just get exposed to like real business problems as you scale this thing.
Yeah, and absolutely agree. And something I was going to add really quickly. I used to think, like, you know, entrepreneurship is risk. For me, I think of it as, how do I remove as much risk as possible? And one of the biggest risks that we have is this idea risk, like whatever that thing is, like whatever the idea is. Instead, I say I want to remove all that risk and only have execution risk.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great model to think about this, because you know, if you're in the category where you're taking on both of these risks, right? You have not only do you have to educate and train the market to love this thing that you've created, you also have to, you know, continually deliver on this thing. So especially especially with limited resources, this is, to me, is you know, a very interesting way to think about it, where yeah, idea risk versus execution risk, where you have you eliminate so much time and energy that you can invest improperly by not having that idea validated. And I think you could run with those things for years and years. You know, how long was sort of your longest project that ran away from you, and what was that moment where you understood this concept of idea risk?
The longest project that didn't work out, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh man. So I've had something that ran for over a year without a single dollar. I was building a dating site.
Mm.
I was building a dating site. It's called First Date Factory. I worked on it for a year. I have not made a single dollar, and I spent probably 15,000 or something. And then I just stopped building those types of businesses. And
Yeah.
instead, my other type of business, I did 15,000 in the first 60 days. So yeah, so I'll never go back to those types.
I think this is, I'm trying to plot a couple different thoughts on here, but this to me is interesting. If you isolate the execution risk, then you really like start to capture more and more of the market, the better you get at executing, right? And if you're bringing some kind of edge to a market that is, I guess, saturated in terms of a need, but not necessarily saturated in terms of quality execution, or people who have like technical knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
then that's where you kind of start to build this execution advantage, right? Because you're focusing purely on optimizing this thing that there's already demand for.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So the next piece of this is, I think, one of the most powerful ways to think about this is if we talk about the home laundry business that you built, the way you think about delivering traffic to that. So my initial thought when I think about like, oh, somebody's building a home cleaning business, I'd be like, oh man, that's a crazy difficult thing, because you've got to like hire the like people who deliver the service. You've got to build the team to place all of the appointments, make the bookings, et cetera. But the way you've thought about these businesses that you've built, you've kind of optimized on the front end, right? To capture demand from customers. And then you've also sort of slowly optimized that back end process. So can you talk a little bit about how that front end, how you think about the traffic on the front end, and how you can, essentially just build a business around the demand that already exists by creating front end assets? Because I think a lot of people, again, going into that idea risk, they kind of bite off more than they can chew, and more than is necessary, honestly, in order to make a decent living.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So this is another reason why competition is so important, why you want to have a lot of successful players, because that competition becomes your partnership. They become my partners. So all of the existing businesses, they're really good already at providing some service that I don't ever want to become good at, because it's just not my thing. But I know I can become good at creating a brand, telling a story, getting new customers, and just funneling those customers to those folks that already exist. They're already crushing it. They know this business. I don't even have to know it that well. I just need to know how to get the customers. And you get that through a solid brand, having some way to onboard people seamlessly, having some way for them to pay seamlessly. and then those existing businesses can do the work. And that has been my model. Even with product businesses, it's really the same thing. I don't want to build the products. I want to find existing people that already make the products, and I can create a front end brand to drive demand. Yeah.
So you're sort of operating here where demand is coming in from this left-hand side. So let me just illustrate that a little differently, where you can capture demand and then essentially filter that off to these participants in the market that are delivering the service that you're capturing demand for, correct?
That is absolutely right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so the logistics behind that would be something where I think a lot of people would assume that is like a heavy software lift, or you're like, you have to spend a lot of time building relationships and dealing with, problems and customer complaints and things of that nature. Is there something that exists to help you white label that? How does that work?
Yeah. So as I was building this business, that became a problem. Like, how do we handle the logistics? How do we handle customer engagement and all those things that happen after the person becomes a client?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you know what? I can build a piece of software to do it. But initially, because I don't want people to think there's this high hurdle, initially I just used what existed. So I was doing 60,000 per month using Google Sheets, Gmail, Zoho, and PayPal. I didn't even have Stripe yet. So so I kind of like used the tools that existed first, got some revenue, and then used some of that revenue to optimize and build my own tools.
And how much did you invest building the tool?
So eventually I probably spent a good 30K on the first version.
Mm-hmm.
But that was slowly. That was like 4,000 or 5,000 per month on the first version of it. And then I spent another probably 100K on the version that became the SaaS product, which I think we'll get to at some point.
Yeah, great. So at 30K on like just this this product this tool that combined the functionality of all the things that you were using independently originally, correct?
Yes, that's right.
So that optimized your process as a business owner, and then you made this transition from building this custom piece of software that you use to run your business to developing a product for the market, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. So I built that software for me first. This would solve my problems. I knew that I would make that money back in no time, which I did. And then my competitors were like, "Man, this is nice."
Nice.
I was like, "Hey, you can use it for a monthly fee." And then I went down that path of building software for them. And it really was mostly a conversion. And then I added some pieces that they requested, and that was my first customers. So my first customers for my software were my competitors for my core product. Yeah.
Right. So I'm doing a little drawing here where you have like this like bird's nest of stuff, right, that you're whacking together for yourself. That becomes like a more refined version that you package together, and then you polish it up. It becomes this like very seamless software platform that you onboard the clients that were, or the sort of competitors in the market, right? Is that accurate?
Yes, that's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people would think that transition there feels like a huge sort of a huge undertaking, or that feels like the stage of business that we were talking about at the beginning, right? Where I think people would think about something like this as like you have to go out and raise venture capital to build a tool like that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
How were you able to do that on such a budget? Was it because you understood the process so well from delivering it manually? What would you attribute the like efficiency of that build to?
Yeah. So this for me, how I was able to make that work was building community a little bit and some transparency. So as I was building the core cleaning business, I was telling the story and sharing guides and case studies on Reddit and other communities on how to do it. So just being transparent. And as people got inspired to do it, I said this, hey, you can use my software. You can pay me a small amount of money every month, even before it's done, and I'm going to lock you in at some low amount, and you'll get access to all the features when it's fully built, and you'll be locked in at that price forever. So I was able to only put in $5,000. I got a lot of people to sign on even before the product was done, and I used that money to finish the build and get to my MVP and launch the business, and that's how I did it.
Awesome. So these, let's look at the revenue across these. So you were managing 60K a month doing this manually, correct?
Yes, manually. Yeah. And
then as you built your internal backend, do you have any idea like what that unlocked in terms of revenue?
Yeah, after that was done, by the time that was done, we were probably at 120.
And that's kind of, that's still restrained by your ability to manage the inputs, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So this is a more efficient version of your home cleaning service, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And then this iteration here is where you're selling this service to competitors in the market. What did you hit revenue wise here?
Yeah, so I'm selling service to the competitors. So my core cleaning business was at probably 280 or so, almost 300,000 a month for the core business. Then the SaaS business was maybe 25 or 30K a month. It wasn't big yet. Yeah.
Wow. So are you still scaling this SaaS product?
The SaaS product, I sold it last year.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I got a nice multi-million-dollar exit for that.
Beautiful.
In June, yeah.
You say 5 or you said multi-million?
I said multi-million, yeah. It's close to 5, but not quite 5.
Awesome. Yeah. It's such a cool story. And your team, how bootstrapped are we talking here? Could you give us some insight into that process of this entire journey?
Yeah. So how bootstrapped? So I've never raised money at all. If you're talking about raising, so when I started, everything you see here on this screen started with $450. That's what I had. 450.
That's gotta make it onto the slide.
Yeah, that's how I started. And then I just would get revenue. I first rescued myself from having to have a corporate job at all. So I rescued myself. And then I was like, okay, how can I hire myself out of the pieces of the job that I did not enjoy? Mm-hmm. So I would hire more people. And then I hired at the same pace as my revenue growth. And now I'm completely removed from all these businesses, but I'm still getting like a multiple 6-figure paycheck, and I work on stuff that I really I'm excited about. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Are these fair titles? So rescue myself, fire myself, pay myself. That's what.
I love that. Yes.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
This is great. Thanks for being open about the numbers as well. I know we didn't talk about that before, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
The last piece I wanted to cover, I think one of my big questions was, you validated demand by understanding that a lot of people are spending money on this. You personally, you look at your bank statement, you figure out what you're spending money on, and that creates a focus that allows you to build something that is as good as, let's say the worst version in the market. Obviously what you built wasn't, but that's where you can start. So what I found super interesting about this story is how you identified a mechanic to make your service discoverable. And if you could talk a little bit about how traffic works in that world. I know you kind of have an eye for this and a mind for figuring this out in a bunch of different verticals, but specific to the the home cleaning service, how were you able to generate traffic for that thing?
Hmm. Yeah. So with traffic for any of my businesses, I ask myself just a few questions. One, who is my ideal customer? But
Mm-hmm.
not in some like fancy way, like a 35-year-old lady with 2 kids, not like that. But pretty much like, who is going to buy this thing from me? Like who are they?
Yeah.
Two, where do they spend time online? Where do they spend time?
Yeah.
And then my three is just finding a way to get in front of them. So for my e-commerce businesses and so on, maybe they spend time on Reddit. Then I have to figure out what type of content they like to enjoy. I create that content. I give them what they want. They come back to my site. They purchase. For local services and home services, they spend time on Yelp and Craigslist and Angie's List and all these
Yeah. Yeah.
places. So I have to tell myself, how do I get in front of them on those platforms? So I build my profile. I make it look very, very beautiful. I go after reviews because that becomes a currency. I build a system to generate reviews and get them back to my website to purchase. So it really ends up being the same thing. Who are they? Where do they hang out? And how can I get in front of them?
And this social proof component is pretty across all the businesses you've built. This has been the mechanic that's driven that compounding growth, correct?
Absolutely. The more social proof you get, the more business you get, the more social proof you get.
Yeah.
And it snowballs. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really like I think it's called the Matthew principle. It's like the advantage goes to the person with the advantage, right? So if you're at the top of that list, you're the person everybody finds, and then you're the person everybody uses, and then your reviews compound that way. Another thing I think is interesting is, how would you speak to somebody who
I think I lost you.
write you a 5-star review, right?
I lost you for a second there, bro.
Sorry, I
But
was
I can.
with my AirPods case. Sorry about that. I'll repeat it.
Okay.
So a lot of people think about reviews as if you build it, they will come, right? So if you build a great product, people are going to go out of their way to go onto your website and be like, hey, Rohan's company is incredible, 5 stars. I'm going to tell all my friends. I've been very interested in dispelling that idea that, people have time to go out of their way to review your products. 9 times out of 10, you have to ask them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
can you speak a little bit about how you've built those loops of social proof in these businesses?
Yeah. So you said 9 times out of 10 you have to ask them, and 9 times out of 10 you have to ask them 9 or 10 times. Yeah, you got to ask them a lot for reviews. So as I was building a business, and as I build any business, I tell myself, okay, reviews are valuable. Like, I could probably assign some monetary value that I don't know how I would figure it out, but they are worth money, right? So if they're worth money to me, I think that it's fair for me to think of a way to incentivize my customer to actually give me them. And
That's
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
it's real currency. It matters. So we incentivize them in multiple ways. Like, we can't just buy reviews. We can't just pay for review, because that would be against the terms of services for most of these platforms. Instead, we say, hey, we could give you a 25% discount off your next service.
Mm-hmm.
We could throw in an extra VIP service that you would have to pay for, but we'll give you it for free. We can give you same day privileges. So anytime you reach out to us same day and you're in a bind, we're guaranteed to come through for you.
Yeah.
So we find some way to make them want to give us a review, by making it something that we incentivize.
Yeah. Interesting. And I think I've had the exact same experience. So just to a couple of the digital products that we've shipped, every time I've just said, I'd really appreciate an honest review. You know, this is not me fishing for you to tell me that this is the greatest thing you've ever seen. But if you're willing to spend 10 minutes doing this, I would like to give you something in return. And in the couple of cases I've done that, one time I didn't say what it was, but I tested it, A/B tested that on 2 segments of the audience. When I didn't make an offer, I think, you know, less than 1%. When I did make an offer, closer to 20% of people completed the thing.
Wow.
And then on the second product, I said, would love to jump on the phone with you guys for half an hour. If you've completed the course, I'd love to have like a implementation call. And that obviously drove a lot of, if you're prepared to give something in exchange, there was a ton of interest in that. And we got some great social proof out the back end of that. And then even from the call itself, you can generate more social proof by asking people, you know, how was the call? Did you get value from it? Would really appreciate it if you could record that somewhere. So I think this is true of, you know, whatever it is you're building, social proof is 100% like incredible currency. And I think there's, you know, I've even thought about businesses that exist solely to generate social proof. That's something I'm interested in maybe working on in the near future. But anyway, enough of that. So to get back to the high level points, and then we can open it up for a couple questions. Just wanted to recap. First of all, thanks, man. This is awesome. I know we could have had probably a 4-hour conversation here, but I think you really brought an enormous amount of value, and I think a lot of us will benefit from these ideas. The big myth that I think you dispel in a lot of your writing is that people should be afraid of competition, or, you know, if somebody's already doing something that's not a reason for you to get involved, the opposite is likely true. And this idea, this is a massive idea in my mind, where if you're able to build a business like this, not only is it going to give you this predictable income stream to allow you to go and do these, you know, wild ideas that may end up somebody making a movie about you one day. Unlikely, but if that's what turns you on, then carry on. But it also teaches you all of the fundamental components of running an unsexy business, which I think is the underpinning of, you know, succeeding at scale anyway. So I'm super grateful for this perspective, and I think a lot more people need to hear it, and a lot of people can benefit from reading, consuming all of your stuff. So I'd encourage everybody here to follow Rohan on Twitter and sign up to his email and et cetera, because he's dropping a lot of great stuff every day.
Thank you, bro.
So I was going to open this up for some questions in the audience, see if anybody wants to dig deeper anywhere. But yeah, man, thank you so much for taking the time, man. And we actually spent a half an hour on the phone before this, so it's not an insignificant time commitment. So much appreciated.
Yeah, man.
All right, so we got first questions in. What was your thought behind selling your software to your competitors instead of keeping it to yourself and using it as a competitive advantage?
Yeah, so I kind of think of that stuff more. I try to keep myself in abundance mindset as much as possible, and the abundance mindset answer would be to look at the business opportunity in front of me and find ways to, you know, turn my competitors into partners. And that's where I try to come down on whenever I have that choice to make.
That's great. Another question: how would you define? I think you mean, Dalton, execution risk. So the definition of execution risk versus idea risk.
Okay, yeah. So idea risk for me is, oh man, I went to bed and I woke up with this great idea for a business. Nobody else has ever done it, and I'm going to see if I can turn it into something. So that's, for me, that's the idea risk type thing. Execution risk is if we remove idea risk and just say, here is something that people spend billions of dollars on every year, and there's thousands of companies selling it, I don't have to worry about if it's a good idea or not because people are buying it. Now I can just get rid of that one and say, how can I execute? Can I create a brand that they like? Can I find out where they hang out? Can I create content that they like? Can I get them to pull out their credit card and give me it? So that to me is execution risk. Yeah.
Spot on. Another question, how do you source and manage the quality on the fulfillment side of the business?
Yeah, so on that side, I want to look for people that are already experts at that service, whatever it is, or that product. It could be a product as well. Some person that does it for a living. They have grown business doing it. They themselves have good reviews, and all they have to do is provide them with more work. So that at a high level, that's how I focus on that, by finding experienced professionals in that role. Because I don't ever want to become an experienced professional in that role. I just want to drive as many new customers as possible.
Awesome. It's just that like layer of the ability to capture demand and optimize the delivery of optimize the capture of the cash and the delivery of the service, right? You just live above
Yes.
the day-to-day stuff. It's great.
Yeah, one step above. Yeah.
So Eric asked a question about content. I know we talked about reviews. Is there, I know you've got experience across all these different platforms. So Reddit, Yelp, you also got a D2C brand, right? Where you operate, I would imagine, a lot on social platforms. How does your approach to content change based on the business you're building?
Yes. So really good question. So first I kind of asked myself, like, do people care about this? So if it's something like a cleaning business or a lawn care business, does anybody want to read like the top 10 products nobody wants to read that stuff, right? So I'm like, they don't care. So I'm not going to create content that people don't care about. So I take a step back and say, where are my customers again? What type of content do they actually care about? And if it's on Reddit, I can see the type of content that is upvoted. If it's on Hacker News, the type of content that is upvoted. If it's on Twitter, the type of content that is shared more often. So I kind of say, okay, what do they like? Then my job is just to give them exactly what they like. I don't want to take them off the platform where they already are. I don't want to move them somewhere else. I don't want to give them have them jump through any hurdles. I want to give them exactly what they want, where they want it. And then at the end of that, I can just have a link back to whatever I'm trying to promote. So that's the overriding thing. And then real quick, my philosophy on content is around making it big and epic. So some content that you've seen me put out, it probably takes me a month to do it. So I don't do like a simple, here are 5 steps to improve your day or anything. Instead I say, here are the top 100 ways, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? And that takes me a month to do. But then that month's work is going to drive me like 20,000 visitors per day for like 5 weeks or something. So that's why I aim towards really big, epic, ridiculous content that has pictures and videos and case studies and PDFs and super deep. That's the only type of stuff I want to create.
So like the blockbuster strategy as opposed to the, chipping away on a daily basis. That's
exactly
interesting. Yeah, I think that those assets, the shelf life of something like that is just so much longer, right? And if it's not hosted on a platform that's organized chronologically, I've had this realization about YouTube where on a platform like Twitter, every day you have to show up and just like spout stuff, right, to keep attention. Versus YouTube, I could not post a video for a month, but I'm still going to get like 500 hours of watch time every month because it's just a platform that organizes information differently. And I think there's, again, to talk about the misconception or the misallocation of resources, there is a lot of time and energy going into showing up every day and doing a little bit of something versus, putting your head down for a month and creating something that is just going to like absolutely suck up traffic for months and months and months.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last piece I want to say about content really, really quickly, because is what was I going to say? Oh, transparency. The more transparent your content is, if you're really honest, if you're really transparent, I show screenshots, I don't care. At one point, I was like, yeah, guys, I'm at $3 million per year now with the home cleaning business. And they saw me start at 4,000 per month. So people were like, yeah, right. I was like, all right, I'm going to do a video of me logging into my Stripe account, whatever.
Yeah.
But being transparent is really, really, it like makes your audience feel like they know you, and people are more comfortable doing business with people that they know. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the same experience. Like the stuff that makes me most uncomfortable more often than not, or the stuff I'll be like, this is too much to share, always outperforms something that is a little bit more polished.
So true, bro.
So here's a great question from Jamie, and I think this probably applies to a few people here. So people who aren't necessarily building transactional products, there's definitely merit to collecting social proof. So Jamie's question is, how would you obtain social proof for a newsletter? Would you apply the same incentive structure to that? Is that something that you just let run organically? Off the top of your head, sorry to put you on the spot, do you have any thoughts on how to promote something like that, or how to collect social proof, for something like that?
Yeah, so this is a tougher one, because most of what I've done is build the underlying business and then use the success of the underlying business as social proof for everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just starting from zero, I would just find some way to provide massive value, like this Trends VC. I don't know if you guys heard of that one, but
yeah, Drew is actually a member here, so he'll probably see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that. I love that newsletter. And so he's not necessarily saying, hey, this is done. He's saying, here is what I'm seeing in the market space and I'm going to take some time to distill it down for you and make it super valuable. And for me, that really, really works. But yeah, that's my best answer.
That's cool, man. I like that. It's like, how much effort are you willing to take on for somebody else, right? And if somebody can inherently perceive that like labor that you're doing to make their life easier or more informed or etc., like I think that's where that social proof shows up, right? If it's just a content product, honestly, the tough answer is like the content just has to be so badass that people are like, this is awesome, and you get to use that proof because it just pops up socially. So not the easiest answer to hear, but yeah, like better content produces better social proof. Awesome, man. All right. Well, any more questions, anybody? Or we can wrap up if not. But this was wild, wicked, bro. Man. Great conversation. I'm going to polish this up and stick it on YouTube. So we'll get it on Twitter, and a few more people can have a look, because I think it was excellent, man. Brian, one more question for the road. So it looks like you're building a email list now. Have you had that running for a while?
No, I put it out last week, bro.
Wow. But so let me just share this screen for everybody on the call here. So Brian asks Twitter versus email list, and you're doing a bit of both, right? You've built this Twitter following, and you recently built this site, this week or recently, to kind of put your threads in web format, and you've got 7,000 subscribers on here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I really like Twitter. I like just creating content in general, and by creating the content in Twitter, people like started to gravitate towards it. I had like 1,000 followers on Twitter like right before COVID, and I added a bunch just from creating content.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let me find a way to make the content discoverable, and I came up with this page. very, very recently, and people have been signing up like crazy. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it. I'm just going to write more content probably. Is Twitter the best place to follow Rohan? Yeah, Twitter is good. And this Rohan's Threads page, I'll be adding my Twitter threads to that page as well. And it has an email sign up. Yeah.
Are you getting traffic to this organically, or is it all coming from Twitter at the moment?
Right now, it's all from Twitter. And then I'm going back to my massive Reddit threads that I've built, and I'm adding the link there as well. Because just like you said, those threads that I built, some of them I wrote like 3 years ago. I'm still getting like hundreds of visitors from them to this day. So I just added the link to those threads. Yeah.
Man, Reddit. I've definitely slept on Reddit. I think it's just an enormous potential, right? There's so much traffic going through it.
Yeah, a lot. A lot.
All right, we're still getting questions in here, man. So I'm gonna take some more of your time if you don't mind. We got to the end of it.
Yeah.
Do you have a tech background?
No, I cannot write a single line of code. No.
Right.
But I have like a visual background. Not even a background, but my mind works in a way where I can kind of predict how a product should look and feel and what the customers should experience. So I kind of map that out first, and then I go and find developers to develop the work. And most of my initial developers I found on Upwork.
Wow.
Yeah, my core team is a husband and wife from Russia, and then I have some people from California now, Poland, South America, and that's my core team. And we build everything together. We've been building together for the last 8 years or so. Yeah.
What happened with that Jasmine project that you were building?
Yeah, so that's still coming. My head guy on that took a vacation.
All right.
But that's still coming, yeah.
So for everybody that hasn't seen that, Rohan's building a platform for selling and distributing digital products. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's kind of a much more equitable compensation model, right? You have a flat fee or something of that nature.
Yeah, I think we're going to charge $5 a month versus the other stuff. A very, very simple, straight $5 a month platform.
Man,
yeah.
Wow. I probably could have bought a car with the money I've spent or been charged on fees.
I know it. Somebody said, "Isn't that marketplace saturated?" Good one,
great.
Simon.
That's better. All right, we're listening. That's good. Brandon asked, "How did you build the Threads site? Is that another? You just sort of sketch this up and send it out for a build?"
Yeah. I sketched it out, sent it to my developer, and this is the guy Jiang, and he works with me full time now as well. And it literally took him 1 day to do it.
Oh, that's great.
And it pulls in from using Twitter's API.
Oh, very cool, man. Yeah, it just like tags these threads, and yeah, I think you're going to see a few people rip this off, mate. So nicely done. All right, man.
I was thinking about turning it into a SaaS product too.
Yes,
exactly. So
exactly. Build the demand, and then let your competitors pay you for it. I think there is a product here, man, like curating Twitter off Twitter, because a lot of value on Twitter, but you do have to sort through a lot of garbage to get to it. So probably is a SaaS product here somewhere. I'm sure you got plenty on your plate, mate. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was excellent. We will get this up on YouTube, and if you're not already, make sure to go and follow Rohan, Twitter, everywhere else. Subscribe to the emails. It's like an insane amount of value popping up every day on this stuff. So I don't know how you do it, man, on the front end and building these incredible businesses on the back end. It's impressive stuff. So thanks for spending a bit of your valuable time with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. I heard this is your first one, so I really appreciate it being the first one, but that's crazy. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's an honor. So cheers for doing it.
All right,
man.
Everybody, take care.
You as well, mate. See you around on the internet somewhere. Ta-da.
All right. See you. Okay. Bye-bye.